Binomial distribution. A binomial distribution is the probability of success or failure outcome in an experiment or survey that is repeated multiple times. The binomial distribution is a type of distribution that has only two possible outcomes. Characteristics: the number of observations n is fixed. Each observation is independent, and each observation represents one of the two outcomes, success or failure. The probability of success P is the same for each different outcome. More.
Well, how can we identify this type of distribution? Well, it must accomplish three aspects. The first one is that it is about an experiment in which it is done the same trial n times. Then the trial must have only two possible results, like yes and no, or black and white. And finally, the probability of the results must be always constant. It does not vary. We have here the formula to calculate the probability that the discrete random variable takes any value. And this part of the expression is a combinatory number. It's a combination. And we can say that n is the number of times the experiment is repeated. K is the value that the variable takes. P is the probability of success that normally is given in the problem. Q is the probability of failure, and it can be calculated with this expression as 1 minus P. And finally, X is the random variable. Also, we have important formulas for the mean, for the variance, and for the standard deviation, and they are calculated with these expressions, where N, P, and Q mean the same, like in the previous slide.
Applications. Binomial distributions are useful for analyzing the results of repeated independent trials, especially the probability of meeting a threshold given a specific error rate. Applications. Binomial distributions can also be used in medical field. Used in clinical trials of a new drug. It measures a patient's condition, it may improve or not. It is also used in survival rates of people after surgery, studying the amount of people who survive the surgery. Binomial distributions have many other applications. Some examples may be, if a person purchases a lottery ticket, then he is either going to win or not. The number of defective products in the production line. The new job applicants that are either going to be accepted or rejected. A firm bidding for a contract is either going to get it or not.
Well, now we can summarize everything we have seen with an easy example. And well, it says, in a light bulb factory, 5% come out with defects. Determine the probability that 2 defective bulbs are found from a sample of 12. Well, the first thing we have to do is to identify that if it is a binomial distribution. And well, it must accomplish the first condition. And we can see that it is an experiment in which they are going to look for the bulbs 12 times. Therefore, it is an experiment which will be repeated 12 times in the same way. The second condition is that in each trial, there can only be 2 results. They can be defective or not defective. And finally, the third condition is that the probability must be constant. And as we can see, each time they look for the bulb, the probability of being defective is 5%. Therefore, it does not vary in each trial. As we concluded, the distribution is binomial, so now we can solve the problem. And well, the first thing we have to do is to remember the formula, and we have to extract the data from the problem. And well, X is the random variable, and we can define it as the number of defective bulbs. Then we have to find K, which is the number, well, it is the value that the variable takes. And which is the number of defective bulbs we want to find? Well, the problem says that it is 2. Then we have to find n, and n is the number of repetitions or trials of the experiment, and it is 12. And then something important is the value of p, which is the probability that success occurs. And success refers to what we have defined in X. So it is the number of defective bulbs. So this means the probability that bulbs are defective. And we can see in the problem that it is 5%. And then we have to find Q, which is the probability that failure occurs. This means the probability that bulbs are not defective. And we can solve it with the formula, which is 1 minus p. And we get the results. Finally, we substitute the values in the formula, and we obtain this number. And if we want to represent it in percentage, it is going to be 9.87%. And finally, the interpretation is that the probability that after looking 12 bulbs, 2 are defective is of 9.87%.